Welcome, everyone. Today we are going to talk about drones and drone technology in education. So with us today is Travis Beatty. Travis is a drone technology teacher for New Hanover County Schools in North Carolina. He has an FAA Flight Certificate. He has an NCDOT Commercial Operator Permit, an NCDOT Government Operator Permit, and a USDOT Night Flight Operations Permit. He does commercial work with drones, such as photography, videography, and inspections. And he's also been working with North Carolina NCDPI on the creation of drone technology courses. That's curriculum and training for instructors, blueprints, pacing guides, curriculum, and test item banks. So welcome, Travis.
Hey, everybody.
I hope you're doing well today. So I think today is going to be really exciting. Travis is going to talk about some really cool stuff that he's been doing. I'm really excited to get a chance to kind of pick his brain and see what's going on in drones in education. So before I even start with that and talking about drones in education, what is a drone and why is it different from like a helicopter or anything else you fly? What does it mean when something is a drone?
Well, that's a great question because a drone is basically a nickname. You know, what we technically fly are UAS, unmanned aerial systems, or sUAS, small unmanned aerial systems. But they adopted the nickname drone.
Gotcha.
So how it makes it different is size and capability. You know, for what we do, all drones weigh less than 55 pounds. That's an FAA requirement. So obviously that's much smaller than a helicopter. And they're traditionally quadcopters is what people expect when they think drone. But that's just one of many, many kinds that are out there.
Gotcha. And now, why have these things, I hear about drones so much, and we've had remote control things like helicopters and planes for forever, since I was a little kid. And yet it seems like in the last, 5 years, I hear about drones. Why have they become so popular?
One is because their capabilities have increased from the little plastic, remote control helicopters that we used to have. And, one of the large part is the video quality and photo quality have gone through the roof.
That makes sense.
So now everything is so much smaller. The other huge component is battery life has gotten so much better.
Gotcha.
Now with a little tiny battery, I can put a drone in the air for like 35 minutes. Where before, you had 5, maybe 6 minutes of flight time. All the electronics have gotten cheaper. Now drones still aren't particularly cheap, but for now, you can get an extremely capable drone that can handle high winds. It carries an amazing camera. It has all kinds of logic sensors on it and everything else for a couple of $1,000s.
Wow. So drones have become popular. What is it about drones that makes sense in education? Like, why drones in education? Like, what are you doing with these things? Like, how would you use a drone in an education setting? What does that even mean?
Well, I work in the career and technical education field. So one of our main focuses is to give students skills that they can take away the minute they leave school. Some kids will go on to a 2-year program. Some kids will go on to a 4-year program. Some kids literally can leave our program and go work.
And what age are these kids?
We start at 16 years old, and that's actually strictly because the FAA has a rule that you must be 16 to have a commercial operator's license. When kids are enrolling in the class, they check their birthday. Will you be 16 at the end of the course? And if the answer to that is yes, they're allowed to take it. And right now, we've completed 8 sections of level 1 this year. This was the first year. Forgive the pun. It was a pilot program this year. And then next year we'll start level 1 and level 2. And level 2 we'll start teaching them much more advanced features like using intelligent flight software and all of that in order mapping software, using multispectral cameras, infrared cameras, really stepping up the game for students who are really looking to consider this as a career.
So what does that mean, a career? Like, what kind of career are you talking about? Could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. One of the biggest employers right now of new drone technology is the power companies. Power companies couldn't hire drone pilots fast enough. Here locally, we have Duke Energy, and they are using drones to monitor power lines and transformers and substations. So traditionally, I watched videos, I was blown away. Guys would literally climb the poles all the way up, and they would literally put this apparatus on the power line and actually scoot along power lines physically to inspect them. And now to do a small section of power line would take days. Now a drone can do everything that was capable of doing with, no threat to human life, and it can do miles in a day. And because of the software that they use, they can have results within 24 hours.
Wow.
So it's just amazing, the amount of ground that they can cover in a very short time with no threat.
So you've talked about using these things professionally. So I've been hearing things that like Amazon's going to start shipping and using drones, and we might get our pizza delivered sometime, using drones. Is that the future? And is that why you see this kind of career path actually expanding? Like, what do you see as the future of this? Like, is that kind of stuff possible? And what do you see as the future of drone technology?
It is absolutely mind-blowing the number of different things drones are being used for now. For example, local hospital out of Raleigh does 11 drone flights a day. They fly blood samples, tissue samples, and they've even flown organs from one hospital to another. And that's 11 scheduled flights plus emergency flights they make. Virginia was the first state on the eastern seaboard to open up deliveries using drones. And what they do is, it's kind of think like an apartment complex where you have your bank of mailboxes. They have delivery points, and the drone will land and deposit the delivery. Then you'll get a code to get your delivery out.
Wow.
And they're doing them a lot around like college campuses and stuff like that. So think Grubhub, but through the air. It is absolutely amazing. China actually has a small fleet of drone taxis that are currently being used. They're big enough to hold 2 humans, and you literally drive over to the port and you get in it, and it'll fly you across the city and drop you off at the next one.
So flying cars are a reality someday, but it's going to be flying drones most likely. We are going to get something that flies. So can you talk a little bit about just the certification process in general that a student goes through? So they sign up when they're 16, and you guys certify them for what exactly? And then how do they, is there like do they have to have a certain license to go get this job? Or is it like is it part of their high school graduation? Like, explain that to me.
Okay, so the first thing that you need is your FAA Part 107 license. And it's very in depth. You learn about weather, you learn about flight patterns, you learn about terrain, everything like a normal pilot would for, a small aircraft. Then you'll go to an FAA certified testing center to take that exam. Once you've completed that successfully, you then apply for your government permit. And then they do a background check, etc. In North Carolina, they actually require that you have a permit through NCDOT as well, depending on what type of operations you want to do. That's why I have both a commercial and a government license. Because I do some first responder work. Being in education is actually on the government side, but then to do all my inspection work and everything is on the commercial side. It's another exam. It piggybacks off of the FAA exam, but it is specific to things in North Carolina. It's not, superseding anything the FAA says. And then my NCDOT license allows me to fly at night. That's another course I had to go to, had to prove, because things are very, very, very different. Flying at night when you actually can't see your drone, and peripheral vision and how all of that works, and you need to learn. So it really just depends on what you want to get into, how many certifications you're going to need. But in North Carolina, the bare minimum, you need your FAA license and one of your NCDOT licenses. And
so a kid needs to be 16 years old to get this. So can we implement this kind of any kind of like drone education in the middle schools? Like, can they just use a drone? Can they just buy a drone and use a drone? Like, it doesn't have to be one of these FAA ones, because I know you can buy them at Walmart and stuff. So can they just implement these? Is that something that teachers can do? And what ages would you recommend they would do that for?
So that's a great question. We actually do have drones in the middle schools. They're not going through a test prep course, per se, like we're doing with Drone Tech
Sure.
1. But we actually developed and physically built like a Quidditch game using drones. So we actually have the rings of 3 different sizes and all of that. And we have drones that have a cage built around them, so they're, they can run into things without the propellers getting caught up and whatnot. And, students are still learning a lot. They're learning a lot of eye-hand coordination, but they're learning a lot about, we do a basic on the rules of flight,
Sure.
Why does a drone fly? Why is a quadcopter the most common? We talk about why do 2 of the blades move one way and 2 move the other way? Because, equal and opposite reactions. That's why the drone is stable, So, yes, there's a lot they can learn in the middle school. We actually even invite the elementary school kids to come out and fly some of the small drones just to try to give them a taste for technology in general. And of course, what's more fun than flying a drone right now? But,
yeah, definitely. So
yeah.
if a teacher wanted to do this, what is the first step? Do they need to get certified to do this, or can they just like buy a drone? Should they start like a club, or should this be something they just try to implement in their curriculum? How would you tell a new teacher asking you, hey, I'd love to do something like this? How did they get started?
So that's a great question. North Carolina, NCDOT requires that you get a permit whether you're flying indoors or outdoors.
Any kind of drone, just as a teacher,
any kind of drone for education.
Gotcha.
So a teacher that wanted to fly a drone in the school, like we'll say as a club, should go and pass their NCDOT government operator's permit. They don't have a need for the FAA permit unless they're going to fly outside.
And this all differs by state, though, too. So we're talking North Carolina. So every state has their own. So if you're from a different state watching this, go look up your laws.
Exactly. The big thing is if you're going to fly outside, the FAA is king. Doesn't matter what your state says, it's going to be underneath the FAA umbrella.
Are these expensive? Is like the FAA certification, is it expensive? Is it a test? Is it hard?
It just went up. It's $160 every 2 years.
Gotcha.
There is some, I'm on a board that they are actually looking at getting rid of the reoccurring test in lieu of continuing ed hours.
Gotcha.
If you're the kind of person, that keeps getting more and more and more certifications and is doing more and more flight time, then they're talking about getting rid of that reoccurring test. But right now that's the case. But it's not, the test is, you have to be diligent. You need to prepare. There's a lot of really good test prep companies out there. We are partnered with a company called UAV Coach that has a program, and they actually donate their test prep software to schools, which is amazing because, I think it's $299. The benefit is you have access to their stuff for life because the rules keep changing. So there's your continuing ed hours. You're always going back in and doing new modules saying,
Sure.
Hey, because the big thing that has to change for deliveries that you mentioned earlier is what they call visual line of sight. Right now, you're not allowed to operate further than you can see your drone, unless you get a special waiver from the FAA, which all these delivery companies will need. So that's one of the very big things that will need to change for drones to expand again.
And do you think that someday we're going to be able to it's going to be like flying a drone is going to be more like a programming coordinates in, and it's going to be able to manually fly? Maybe I'm just thinking like way into the future. Does that seem like something?
That's great. You're not thinking into the future at all. I have software on my iPad right this minute that I can sit at home and pull up your house on Google Maps, and I can program your entire roof inspection from sitting right here. Then I drive to your house, check the wind conditions, check the sunlight conditions, and I prep my drone and I put it on the launch pad, and I literally just hit the go button, and it will
Wow.
inspect your roof for me, and it will land itself.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's really impressive. That's really cool and really impressive. I'm really excited to see that kind of technology taking off. I think I just see so many possibilities with this technology that it's really interesting. So, if I was gonna, so I'm a parent to young kids, and if I was like, hey, we should get a drone, or a teacher is getting their first drone, like what do you recommend? Because you said they can cost thousands of dollars. I know Walmart sells really cheap ones for like $30 to $50. Like,
Right.
what do you recommend? What are like some low end models that someone should start with, or should they bother with them, or what are like some of the better ones you recommend people would want to use?
I get this question a lot from my parents, as their kids come into the program, and they're like, hey, I'd love to get them one they could fly at home or
Sure.
whatever. Right now, a company called DJI is king. They literally own about 80% of the market share worldwide.
Gotcha.
So they're literally the biggest, baddest, best drones out there. There is some concern. This year, the government started cracking down on being able to buy their drones for federal use because they're from China. So staying away from all of that, the politics of that, they make a drone called a Tello. It's Tello. It's about $100 to $130. It is an amazingly capable micro drone. You can buy all the little plastic guards that snap on it to keep the propellers safe and everything
Sure.
else. It is capable of a great deal. It has sensors on it, just basic ones. It has a camera on it. It has a video camera on it. And for $130, it's capable of being flown indoors and outdoors. It doesn't have a huge range on it, but it's pretty sizable. But it is very easy to control. It's great to learn on. That's actually what we use in our program. We start them on a flight simulator, like an actual on your computer.
So they start flying in a simulator to kind of learn the look and the feel they're using, like, I guess, are they using a controller in the flight simulator?
They are.
And
They're
so
using an actual controller like you would use. The controller actually is representative to an FPV drone, like a racing drone. FPV is first person view, where you see the guys with the goggles on ESPN flying through warehouses, etc.
Gotcha.
So the controller is just like that. And so the kids are practicing and teaching them proper techniques, using the pinch technique instead of using their thumbs like gamers are used to, and teaching them why that's better. And they get used to flying there, then they get moved to flying a $100 drone. And then we just bought a bunch of the Mavic Minis that came out last year, which are amazing drones for $500. I mean, they are ridiculously capable. They shoot in 2.7K. They
Wow.
take amazing pictures. Like, I think they're 20-ish, 22 megapixel cameras. And they're, you can actually get them as cheap as $399.
This software, is it free to download, free for anyone to try? Is there like a trial version, or what software do you guys use for that training?
For the simulator, we use a program called Real Flight. 9 just came out. We have 8 loaded. We bought them where you get the controller and the software and the licensing all together.
Oh yeah, it would make sense. You have to buy a controller too, so it's not just like something you download on your machine.
But you can get them on. They're a little over $100. It's not break the bank, and it's awesome. You can plug it into any computer or laptop, or it uses like a standard USB plug.
Gotcha.
And you can fly tons of missions. There's all kinds of challenges. There's like light up rings that you have to fly through, and they, you go to the next one and next one. So it really gets you used to the movements without thinking, hey, this is throttle up and this is throttle down and this is my yaw. You just start to do it automatically, which is really important when you move to the real drone.
So are there any good resources you have for any teachers or parents who are interested in this that maybe want to get started? You mentioned some companies, you've mentioned how to start out, but are there any like good websites they would want to go to, or something they'd want to check out besides like their local laws or the FAA stuff? Is there anything you recommend out there that's really good, like lesson plans for teachers using drones or anything like that?
There's not as many out there as we would hope to have. It's actually something I approached working with DPI. They gave us a really rough blueprint, and then they brought on about 10 or 11 of us to ask us to help grow that. And then I went and reached out to some commercial companies, and the one I chose was UAV Coach. They're based out of Tennessee, and they were immediate receptive. They were like, absolutely, we think more kids should be getting into the drone business, and so they offered us a scholarship program to get kids in. But they also happen to have an amazing online resource library that is completely free. There's so much stuff out there. There's so many lessons out there that are free, but their actual test prep software directly is the first thing you have to pay for. But sadly, there's not a ton out there yet as far as getting through an actual curriculum, anything a little more structured.
And hopefully once you guys develop that, it'll be out there for everyone.
That's absolutely the goal. Right now there was a little trial and error this year, being the first year we did it, but we share resources a lot. My website is A+ Drone. That's aplusdrone.com. And there's a ton of resources out there that anybody can use. Is that
A+ like A+, or is the APLUS drone?
Yeah, it's spelled out because you can't use a plus symbol.
I thought so.
In a URL. So yeah, just aplusdrone.com. There's so much out there. I put a lot of resources out there. For example, there's a lot of, what kind of drone should I buy, and I make a lot of recommendations for parents. We also have a drone club, so we have a bunch of the FPV drones, and they're in there what they call the Whoop style, which is where it has these little, you can 3D print, so protectors and stuff for the drones. So when you're slamming into walls, because you're looking out of a viewer, your drone is way over there flying through an obstacle course. So we come up with a lot of different ideas on how to do that. We actually partnered with Home Depot. They provided us with a ton of PVC and cutters and glue. And we make all these different obstacle courses and stuff so we can challenge ourselves.
That's pretty fun. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a good time with it. So I keep that separate because it's the club, and we don't fly the school's curriculum drones for that, because I'd be pretty scared to damage a $3,000 drone, racing through an obstacle course.
But that's really interesting. I've learned a lot. It's just to kind of recap some of the stuff we talked about, just the future of drones and how much they're already needed in today's society is just immense. And, you're already right now seeing like a demand for your students graduating from this, learning the curriculum, getting these certifications. They're able to find jobs right away. And that's only going to grow, especially as things like delivery, the idea that we're going to potentially be flying these. So you're talking about repairing them, fixing them, programming them, flying them. I mean, there's so many jobs this is an industry that's just going to be growing and expanding year by year for the foreseeable future. I mean, it's really an amazing technology. I mean, it's a really exciting time that we're alive to see this actually come to fruition. Absolutely. So is there anything you would like to add or anything like that? Anything I didn't talk about?
One thing that just came to mind is drones are also being used for entertainment. They're on ESPN. It's called DRL, Drone Racing League. And now you can actually fly online in tournaments that pay you. So you can literally download it on Steam, and I think it's like $10 or $15 to download it, and they have tournaments constantly that you can make a few $100s.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. It reminds me they have the RC car tournaments. You can race them and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of the whole esports pandemic of its own. DRL, the guy who won the world championship last year, the purse was $3 million.
What? Wait, whoa. This isn't just a little thing. You can actually win a significant amount of money flying drones.
Yes, you can.
Racing them and through obstacle courses.
Those skills, and you can race a DRL drone. you can literally make millions of dollars doing
Okay,
it.
I got to look this up on YouTube because I'm really curious to see what a drone race looks like. Because I like watching the RC cars. I think they're really interesting. So for people who aren't familiar, that's like the monster trucks or like the dune
Right.
buggy type little remote control cars that use gas and they're full like machines.
Exactly.
So I'm very curious to see what like a drone race would be like. That would be really interesting and something fun to watch. And now that I see it's kind of serious and on ESPN and other places, like that's really cool. I like to see like the esports that are more of a, you know, not necessarily just a video game, but something like drones, like the handheld
Right.
or like bike racing and stuff where you're racing from the virtual racing and stuff. I think is a really fascinating connection between esports and real sports and what we're doing. So that's really pretty cool to watch. That'd be
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. Yeah. I think the opportunities are just going to be endless for this.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's a lot to be said. Well, thank you, Travis, for this interview. I actually learned a lot of stuff. I think this is really cool. I think people are going to enjoy this because I think we're just not. I think there's a lot of misconception about what drones in education really mean and what some schools are actually really doing. Like you're just preparing people for jobs. You're not just, you know, flying these for the fun of it, just using a technology for the sake of using a tech. Like you're really training people to do something that's going to be very important in the foreseeable future.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
All right. Thank you.